All right. See how many people are hopping on. Give it a little bit. I haven't done a live discussion in a month and a half or 2 months. So I'm going to be doing these probably once a month, maybe once every 2 weeks. I don't know. Still up in the air. I wanted to do one on a American Airlines Flight 11 and talk about the history of the timeline of events that took place and also talk about the competing theories regarding this incident, this specific incident, which took place on September 11, 2001. And also, we'll also be doing some hypothesizing, um, giving our speculative thoughts about the incident as well. But a little bit about the history of the plane, which involves the construction of the plane. I want to be very technical in this video as well. There seems to be, hey, Darren, what's up? Thanks for coming. And I just wanted to talk about, because there's still such a fascination regarding the truth movement, 9/11 truth movement, about the flights and what took place on them and what didn't take place. And I want to be as technical as possible regarding this specific incident. Now, I know that between the two opposing groups in the truth movement, which are truthers and debunkers, in the truth, I always say, is somewhere in between. There are anomalies that did take place. I'm not going to give you, the official narrative, as I hate to say that term anyway, official narrative, because there is no official narrative. Any layman could tell you that 9/11 is incomplete, and the stories and information that we got were minimal. Some was outright wrong, and of course, the opposition is the conspiracy theories. Now, which one are the more rational ones? Which one aren't are not reasonable, that defy even rationale? Well, we're gonna talk about all this, but first, I'd like to talk about the specifics of American Airlines Flight 11. This was a Boeing 767-223 series. Now, I'm going to be reading off a number of articles. I have a number of documents I have at the bottom of my screen, which you can't see, and also websites that are official websites. Not blogs and um, questionable sites that don't adhere with references or whatnot. So these are official sites I'm reading off of. The American Airlines plane was a Boeing 767-223 series, which was created in April of 1987 with the registration number N334AA. The maximum capacity of this plane is 158 passengers, with 9 in first class, 30 in business, and 119 in economy. On September 11th, which landed on a Tuesday, the flight itself carried 81 passengers and 11 crew members. It was considered a light load at 58% capacity, but higher than the average load factor for Flight 11 on Tuesday mornings, which was 39% usually preceding the month of September. And that's from American Airlines. Now, the crew members were Captain John Ogonowski, First Officer Thomas McGinnis Jr., the purser was Karen Martin, and flight attendants were Barbara Arastugi, Jeffrey Coleman, Sarah Lowe, Kathleen Nicosia, Betty Young, Jean Roger, Diane Snyder, and Amy Sweeney. And let's talk about the timeline of events. I'm not going to go further as I can in time, so I'll start with the morning of September 11th, in which Mohammed Atta and Abdul Aziz Alamari um, arrive at Portland International Jetport, which is in Portland, Maine, at approximately 5:40 a.m. At the Portland ticket counter, Mohammed Atta, according to Michael Tuohe, who was a ticket agent, Atta had asked Tuohe about his boarding pass for Flight 11. Tuohe told Mohammed Atta that he would have to check in a second time when he reached Logan. And according to Michael Tuohe, this greatly angered Atta. And in response, Atta told Tuohe that he'd been assured that he have a one-step check-in, knowing that he is really wants to get to the connecting flight. Now, we could speculate as to why he and Abdulaziz Alamari were in Portland to begin with. Now, that's an interesting anomaly. But according to the 9/11 Commission report and to the FBI, this was to actually not cause any suspicion by having too many Arabs in one setting. Now, that's interesting because I don't believe it. I can't prove it, but I don't believe that explanation because one, all of the Flight 175 hijackers entered Logan, and minutes preceding each other, some of them came in at the same time, and this wasn't talked about with them. Same thing for Flight 93. Same thing for Flight 77, but not Flight 11. Why did Atta and Almari go to Portland, Maine? Now, there's a hypothesis that I'm currently working on with another researcher named TJ Thermal Detonator, Nelson Martins, where we believe this is a speculation, of course. We believe he traveled to Portland, Maine, to meet up with other people that were involved with the operation itself, whether they be financiers, affiliates, or even additional muscle hijackers or pilot hijackers. This is why we say it's speculation. We don't know for sure, but it had to be important for them to travel to Portland in the first place. If it was just someone that has a message for them, I mean, who cares? They're going to die anyway. But in order for them to go out of their way and travel from New York to New Jersey to Portland is a big deal. So we don't know why they went there. So anyway, Tuohe noticed that Atta was getting really angry at this point, and so he said that you better hurry up if we don't want to miss a flight because you're cutting it close with the boarding plane, which is American Airlines 11. So both him and Abdulaziz Alamari, they left the ticket counter to go to the security checkpoint. When they go through security checkpoint, there is a program called the Computer Assisted Passengers Pre-Screening System, or in short, CAPS. What this does, it identifies passengers who might be a security risk based upon suspicious behavior, such as buying one-way tickets or paying with cash, or having a history of being someone who's visited Afghanistan, which was a known spot for terrorist activity, and Pakistan. Now, the CAPS program randomly assigns some passengers to receive additional security screening, which is the wand, right? And if a particular passenger has been designated as a selectee, what happens is the information is transmitted to the airport's check-in counter, where a code is printed on their boarding pass. And at the security checkpoints, selectees are subjected to additional security measures. That means that their carry-on luggage, it could be inspected. They go through the wand. Um, you know, that's the two main security, the extra additional security they go through. Atta and Almari boarded Colgan Air Flight 5930. And so this plane was scheduled to depart at 6 a.m. and fly south to Boston. And both of these men had first class tickets, uh, which are on Colgan Air Flight, as well as American Airlines 11. Now, Atta had checked in 2 bags, while Al-Amari checked in none. He didn't have a bag. And when they went through the CAPS program, Atta's baggage was selected to be screened, and he was already in a rush. So he boarded with Al-Amari. Now, this luggage wasn't carry-on luggage. So with carry-on luggage, they take it to the plane, but this wasn't carry-on luggage. And when the plane took off, which was without any delay, the luggage, because it went through the CAP screening process, it basically didn't make it to the plane on time. And this is the reason why his luggage was behind. Now, there's a conspiracy theory regarding all the luggage was basically left behind on purpose. It's a stretch. Now, I don't necessarily disagree with it, but I gave you a reason as to why that luggage didn't make it on time, which really is suspicious that they were in Portland to begin with. Who were they meeting? Who were they talking with? We don't know. The FBI did investigate this issue because in the days after 9/11, the FBI conducted the biggest investigation in their agency's history, and this was named Pent Bomb, Pentagon Twin Towers bombing, right? And the FBI basically investigated the hotel they were staying in, the cameras in which they visited certain stores. I think one was an ATM machine, and there was a picture of Abdulaziz Al-Amari with Atta in the background. So the flight departed out of Portland and arrived in Boston at 6:45 a.m. 3 other muscle hijackers were also at Logan at 6:45. And they are Walid El-Sheri, Wael El-Sheri, and Satam Al-Suskami. They left their rental car in the airport parking facility. Meanwhile, Marwan Al-Shehi, who is supposed to be piloting the plane of United Airlines Flight 175, made a call from a payphone in Logan to Atta's cell phone. This call was apparently to confirm that the attacks were ready to begin, right? But since they were not giving their boarding passes for Flight 11, Atta and Al-Amari had to check in and went through security in Boston. Meanwhile, Satam Al-Suskami, Wael El-Sheri, and Walid El-Sheri they all checked in for the flight in Boston. Wael El-Sheri and I believe Satam Al-Suskami checked in 1 bag. And Walid El-Sheri didn't check any bags. And CAPS, the program, selected all 3 for detailed luggage check. And if you want to know more about the CAPS program and the hijackers, There's an article written by the San Francisco Chronicle dated July 23rd, 2004, and the headliner is Investigating 9/11 to Doom Flights. The 9/11 Commission report will state that the call is 3 minutes long between Mohammed al-Shayed and Mohammed Atta. Now, also according to 9/11 Commission, they would later speak again briefly by cell phone while they were waiting for the plane to take off. And that's before 8 a.m. The first officer of American Airlines 11, Lynn Howard, she arrives in Boston after co-piloting a flight from San Francisco that would be redesignating American Flight 11. She walks off the aircraft and enters the passenger lounge, and Atta had approached her and asked if she'd be flying the plane back across the country. And Lynn Howard told him she just brought the aircraft in, and Atta turned his back and walked away. And as he boarded Flight 11, Atta asked the gate agent whether the 2 bags he checked in earlier in Portland had been loaded onto the plane. The woman didn't have an answer for him. And so, as I said before, the luggage didn't make it. But that ticket agent, the gate agent, didn't know whether the luggage made it on or not. And you're asking, well, where are you getting this information from? Newsday article dated April 17, 2006, unraveling 9/11 was in the bags. That'll be my reference. Also, by 7:40 a.m., all 5 of the hijackers, Mohammed Atta, Abdulaziz Al-Amari, Satam al-Sistami, Wael al-Shadi, and Walid al-Shadi, the brothers, boarded the flight, which was scheduled to depart at exactly 7:45 a.m. Now, according to the flight documents that were released to the public after the Zacharias Moussaoui trial of 2006, and to the copies of the flight manifests, Atta sat in business class 8D, with Abdulaziz Al-Amari in 8G, Satam al-Sistami in 10B, and Walid and Wael al-Shadi sitting in 2B and 2A in first class. They're the muscle hijackers. Shortly before takeoff, American Airlines Flight Service Manager Michael Woodward, he walks aboard for a final check. And according to him, now you can look this up. I have this on my WordPress. So all you have to do is type in memorandum for the record, Michael Woodward. And you read the FBI interview of him. According to Woodward, he passes Atta, making note of the passenger's brooding expression, because he's still, I don't know whether still angry about Portland or just, who knows. But according to people who had experience with him, he was a very moody individual, even-tempered. And during that last inspection, he leaves the plane. At 7:46, which is 1 minute behind schedule, the aircraft receives clearance to push back from gate B32, in which I'll play the audio.
American 11 Heavy, we're at Bravo 32, ready for push. American 11 Heavy, thank you. Monitor ground point 9, November's current. We got November, good day. American 11 Heavy, Boston ground. Gate 32, you're going to wait for a Saab to go by and then push back. After the Saab, clear to push, and we're going to need 4 right today, American 11 Heavy.
Okay. He's cleared to push. Hopefully that audio came in loud and clear. Did everybody hear that, by the way? You could type in a yes and it'll help me greatly. Okay. Now, it is not really known to this point, and you really can't know, right? But according to the 9/11 Commission, the hijacking approximately begins at 8:14 a.m. The reason why they say it's 8:14 is because the pilots stopped responding to requests from Boston Air Traffic Control Center. At 8:13 a.m., as American Airlines was passing over central Massachusetts at 26,000 feet. Okay. The pilots responded to a request from Boston Air Traffic Control to make a 20-degree turn to the right. And that's this audio here.
American 11, turn 20 degrees, right? 20 right, American 11.
That's the audio you hear. At 8:13 a.m., Boston Air Traffic Control again gets in contact and tells them to climb to an altitude of 35,000 feet. But there is no response.
American 11, climb maintain level 350. American 11, climb maintain level 350. American 11, Boston.
No answer.
Air 7, Mike Lima, how do you hear? Mike Lima has you loud and clear. American 11, Boston.
So, this is exactly why the 9/11 Commission report stated that the hijacking approximately takes place at 8:14. And I want to try and be as technically direct as I can, because what I want to do is say that, yeah, not everything in the 9/11 Commission report was right, but not everything is wrong. Okay. Now, for them to say that the hijacking probably took place at 8:14 a.m., well, that's probably a reasonable response, because as I played the audio for you, and this is the ATC recording, there is no response. Even though there was a response from the captain earlier. There is no response here, with the captain being John Oganowski. So at 8:16 a.m., approximately 2 minutes later, the aircraft levels off at 29,000 feet and then starts to gradually deviate from the path. It's unclear at this point whether John Oganowski, the captain, activates the talkback button or whether a hijacker actually does it when he takes over the cockpit. Someone from Air Traffic Control actually later says, and this is coming from an article by MSNBC on September 15, 2001, the button is being pushed intermittently most of the way to New York. And according to that same article, it states that his ability to do so also indicates that the driver's seat that he is in is, I'm sorry, his ability to do so is also indicated that he is in the driver's seat much of the way to the World Trade Center. And these transmissions continue until about 8:30 a.m. Now, that's an interesting bit of information. Was Oganowski in the pilot seat, or was he in the first officer's seat? Now, the two Boston flight controllers are Pete Zalowiski and Lino Martins. And that's who you hear in the audio. All right. Now, at 8:17 a.m., flight controllers at Boston Center hear a brief unknown sound of the radio frequency used by Flight 11 and other nearby flights. They don't know where it comes from, and they're not certain. So, but they hear a screaming sound. And also about this, about they ATC at this point is still trying to contact 11. And at 8:21 a.m., someone in the cockpit stopped transmitting the flight's Mode C transponder signal. The transponder is an electric device that produces a response when it receives a radio frequency interrogation. And transponders are to assist in identifying them on air traffic control radar. Now, 8:23 and 8:25 or A6, aircraft communications addressing and reporting systems, which is ACARS. Basically, ACARS in aviation, just to explain for those who don't know, ACARS is a digital data lake system for transmission of short messages between the aircraft and ground stations via airband radio or satellite. And it was implemented in 1978. So that ground radar can send data link messages to the cockpit. One message was sent, and it said, "Good morning, ATC looking for you on 135.32. And a second one immediately afterwards wrote, "Please contact Boston Center ASAP. They have lost radio contact and your transponder signal." And I would say at about 8:25, we get that's 8:24. We get the first transmission from someone in the pilot seat.
Is that American 11 trying to call? Buddy. We have some planes that stay quiet and you'll be okay. We're heading to the airport. And who's trying to call me here? American 11, are you trying to call? Nobody knows. Everything is okay. If you try to make any move, you can do yourself on the airplane. Let's be quiet.
Okay. That's allegedly Mohammed Atta. Okay. People who know him said that that's his voice. Now, to go back to the conspiracy theories or the fringe conspiracy theories saying that these people weren't on the plane. I think at this time we can dismiss these statements that somebody was on these planes. Was it Atta? Was it the 5 hijackers? Well, according to Michael Woodward, he saw Mohammed Atta on the plane. Okay. And if we're going to say, well, he's lying or he's part of the system, you're going to have to prove that, right? So if you can prove that he basically lied and that wasn't Atta's voice, then we have a case, right? And we can work with that. But until somebody does that, we're going by the evidence and not by speculation as the lead to try and get an understanding of what took place in this incident. And I'm not telling you that you shouldn't entertain conspiracy theories, because I do. I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I'm not going to lead with conspiracy as the lead evidence. Now, I have evidence. Yeah, there's certain evidences that we could provide. But I'll also entertain conspiracy theories where there's evidence missing to see if it makes sense, whether it's reasonable. Maybe Atta's voice is transmitted to the plane. I don't know. Is that too much of an unreasonable scenario, using radio frequencies on the ground to transmit to the plane? That's a reasonable hypothesis. However, he was seen on the plane. So, Atta himself, by the way, he spoke English fluently. And he spoke Hebrew, Arabic, and German a little. The 9/11 Commission report states that it may be possible that Abdulaziz al-Amari may have been the person sitting next to him in the cockpit. Now, according to flight attendants Amy Sweeney and Betty Young, who both contacted American Airlines during the hijacking, the hijackers had stabbed flight attendants Karen Martin and Barbara Arastugi, and they slashed the throat of Pastor Daniel Lewin, the Israeli counterterrorism officer. There is an American Airlines draft report that states that the person sitting in 9B, which is the seat ahead of Satam al-Suskami, who's sitting in 10B, is shot. Why did he write that in a draft report? By the way, that didn't make it to the official report because Jane Garvey, the Federal Aviation Administration leading manager, stated that there was no reports of a gun. But the question remains, whoever wrote this report, and it's unknown who wrote the report, the draft report, where he got that information, he or she got that information from. It would make sense to shoot a guy who basically is considered a highly trained officer in I think it was called the Sayeret Maskaral, which is an elite Israeli commando team dealing with terrorism, counterterrorism. But that would mean that the weapon was planted on the plane. This is a reasonable hypothesis because we do have evidence that certain hijackers of 9/11 had tried to enter the tarmac at Dulles Airport on September 10th, 2001. That's coming from the testimonies of security guards from Argenbright and Dulles Airport. Okay, so a phone call is made. One of the flight attendants, Betty Young, calls American Airlines reservation desk, and one of the reservation agents handed the call to um, reservations manager Nidia Gonzalez. Now, according to the 9/11 Commission report and the FAA, the call lasts 25 minutes. However, only 4 minutes is available to the public. Why? Why is that only available to the public? Well, let's listen to the call.
Listening in the back, the cockpit's not answering. Somebody's stabbed in business class. And I think there's mates that we can't breathe. I don't know. I think we're getting hijacked. Which flight are you on? Flight 12. And what seat are you at? Ma'am, are you there? Yes. What seat are you in? Ma'am, what seat are you in? We just left Boston. We're up in the air. We're supposed to go to LA, and the cockpit's not answering their phone. Okay, but what seat are you sitting in? What's the number of your seat? Okay, I'm in my jump seat right now. Okay. At 3R. Okay, you're the flight attendant? I'm sorry, did you say you're the flight attendant? Hello? Yes, hello? What is your name? You're going to have to speak up. I can't hear you. Sure. What is your name? Okay, my name is Betty Ong. I'm number 3 on flight 11. Okay. And the cockpit is not answering their phone. And there's somebody staffed in business class, and we can't breathe in business class. Somebody's got mace or something. Can you describe the person that you said someone is what in business class? I'm sitting in the back. Somebody's coming back from business. If you can hold on for 1 second, they're coming back. Okay, our number 1 is got stabbed. Our purser is stabbed. Nobody knows who's stabbed who, and we can't even get up to business class right now because nobody can breathe. Our number 1 is stabbed right now. Okay. And our number 5, our first class passengers, our first class galley flight attendant, and our purser has been stabbed.
Okay, so now we know for sure that there's people on this plane, that 2 people have been stabbed, actually 3. 1 is fatally wounded. And that's alleged. That's supposed to be Daniel Lewin. Is he stabbed? Is he shot? We don't know. But we do know 2 flight attendants are stabbed, the purser and an attendant. So we can dismiss the conspiracy theory that no one is on these planes, unless you're willing to say that these phone calls were faked, that the phone calls were manipulated. According to Dr. George Papkun, who is founder of voice morphing, and he's a forensic analysis expert, testimony researcher. He wrote a letter on his website in, I believe it was 2010, where I will quote you. Purveyors of conspiracy theories have claimed that the events of 9/11 were the result of a massive cover-up. However, a major problem for the allegation that the phone calls are fake, or that there were no hijackers, a claim that someone, namely me, created the voices of the passengers in those phone calls. That allegation is plainly outrageous and demeaning to the memories of those courageous passengers. With the colleagues at Los Alamos National Laboratory, I originally developed the technology of voice morphing, the technology by which it is possible to make someone seem to say something they did not say. For example, there are too many practical considerations that would have made it to be met. Oh, I'm sorry. There are too many practical considerations that would have to be met to make the counterfeit telephone calls possible under those circumstances. For example, it is necessary to have samples of the voices of the people to be imitated in situations where the goal is to participate in an unconstrained conversation. The voice samples must be extensive. I cannot imagine how I might have obtained extensive samples of the voices of the passengers on Flight 93 or 11 or any of the planes on 9/11, especially not knowing which of them might call home. Additionally, in this situation, it would be necessary to know what someone would say to his or her loved ones under such circumstances in which I could not know beforehand. For example, like what pet names would be used, what references would be made to children or other loved ones. Do believers actually suppose that the government listens in to everyone's pillow talk and has me to conduct the voice morphing recordings and then technology recordings afterwards? Such wild out theories would be worth concern, and it is problematic. End quote. Dr. George Papkun. Now, if you're willing to even go a step further, if you're the fringe conspiracy theorist, well, he's in on it. He's lying. You'll have to prove that. So, for those who don't believe in hijackers or phone calls, up until this point, you have a bigger conspiracy that you created for yourself that involved so many more people to be involved from the public sector that you risk the operation to be unraveled by public servants of the community who would have to be under 24-hour watch for the last 20 years or be threatened with death or coercion by who knows. As you could see, this is why these fringe conspiracies basically are not reasonable. Now, I'm not, like I said before, I'm not saying that conspiracy theories aren't reasonable. I have my own theories. You just heard one about Portland. So, this is the reason why I'm not reaching to the people that already know the stuff I know. Okay? For example, if Darren Harvey's in the room, this is not a video for him specifically. This is a video to try and help people who have been victims of fringe conspiracy theorists who don't believe in hijackers or hijacked planes or that the phone calls are faked, and that everybody in the airline industry who had either witnessed or personally met passengers or crew or hijackers, and that they're all in on it, where the conspiracy is much, much greater and wider and unreasonable at this point, that the FAA, the FBI, the National Transportation Safety Board, all of these agencies would have to be at some level in or threatened, coerced, or lying, which involves a bigger conspiracy than what you originally intended it to be. Why is that a more reasonable scenario than having hijackers hijack planes and that people actually making phone calls? Everyone's dead anyway. And that the real conspiracy starts with the intelligence agencies and individuals linked to the hijackers. That's the real conspiracy. That's the conspiracy theorists in the 9/11 Truth Movement don't talk about. Because if you don't believe in hijackers, You don't get to look into the backgrounds of those people. What do you care? They don't exist. Okay, let's go back to a timeline here. According to Ong on that phone call, which I didn't play everything, she said she thought that the hijackers had jammed their way in. Now, the 9/11 Commission report suggested that they attacked the flight attendants to get the cockpit key, which is usually on the purser, and that would be Karen. I forgot her last name. She's stabbed. She's the purser. Now, also in that same report, it's believed that one of the hijackers, or more, probably the brothers who sat in first class, while Whale and Walid al-Sheri, made the first move attacking Karen Martin and R.S. Doogie. And that they got the cockpit key from the purser. Amy Sweeney says that Martin was badly injured and she was being given oxygen. Meanwhile, Sweeney and Ong said Aristoghi's injuries weren't as serious as Martin's, and that Betty Ong said she heard loud arguing after the hijackers entered the cockpit. This was in Arabic. Now, what could they be arguing about? Were they arguing with the pilots? Were they arguing with each other? It's not known. It is also believed by the same report that the hijackers either killed or injured John Adnosky and McGinnis, the first class officer. According to Amy Sweeney, she said that one of the hijackers had shown her a device with a red and yellow wire that appeared to be a bomb. It's not known whether it was actually a bomb, but shortly during this time, Michael Woodward, the American Flight Services manager who did a check of the plane, is listening to Amy Sweeney on the telephone, and he wants to pass on the information he's hearing from her, including that tidbit I told you. Now, since there's no tape recorder, he calls Nancy Wyatt, the supervisor of the pursers at Logan Airport. Now, holding telephones in both hands, he repeats to Wyatt everything that Sweeney is saying to him. Now, Wyatt, in turn, simultaneously transmit his account to the airline's Fort Worth, Texas headquarters. And that conversation between Wyatt and the managers at the headquarters is recorded. All the details from Sweeney's call reach American Airlines top management almost right away, instantly. Now, that recording was played in the Zacharias Moussaoui trial. It's not public. Now, according to the victims' relatives who hear the recording, the two managers at headquarters immediately discussed a cover-up of the hijacking details. One of them is heard to have said, "Don't spread this around. Keep it close and keep it quiet. Let's keep this among ourselves, and that what can we find out from our own sources about what's going on." One former American Airlines employee who has also heard this recording recalls in Fort Worth, two managers in the systems operations control were sitting beside each other and hearing it. And they were both saying, "Do not pass this along. Let's keep it here. Let's keep it among the five of us." Now, apparently, this decision prevents early and clear evidence of a hijacking from being shared during the crisis. That's amazing. I found this out. Now, you're asking, where are you getting this information from? The information is coming from an article from the New York Observer dated June 17, 2004, which is hard to find these days. Another broadcast is heard from the cockpit. This time, again, allegedly from Mohammed Atta at 8:33.
Nobody move, please. Going back to the airport. Don't try to make any stupid moves.
Okay, that's the final recording from the cockpit that we hear. As you can see, Mohammed Atta is telling everybody they're going back to the airport. Now, was that the original plan all along? Now we're going to hypothesize. Was that the original plan all along? Or was that to basically not cause a revolt on the plane? Because if you could tell them they're going to die, they're going to fight back, which is exactly what happened with Flight 93. But none of the other planes. Actually, I believe Flight 175 may have. And that recording was 8:33. 4 minutes later, the pilots of Flight 175 verified Flight 11's location and heading to flight control. At around that same time, Dan Bueno of Boston Center contacts Cleveland Center about American Airlines.
Hi, Cleveland, New York, Boston. I got a little situation with American 11, American 11. He is a 767 departed Boston going to LAX. We don't know where the aircraft is going. He is supposedly going to LAX. Was going westbound. We lost his frequency. Then we lost his transponder. That is just west of Albany, heading due south.
Okay. Cleveland Center is aware of it. Yet, in Fort Worth, the managers at the System Operations Control still don't inform anybody about the hijacking. Boston Flight Control radar is now using its own radar because the transponder is turned off. Flight 11 makes an unplanned 100-degree turn to the south, which the plane is already way off course. Flight controllers at ACC never lose sight of the flight, though they can no longer determine its altitude once the transponder is turned off. Now, I hear this from the 9/11 Truth Movement that they're just blips on a screen. That's right. But when the transponder was turned off, the agent in front of the controller never loses track of that plane, because when the plane was being hijacked, the transponder was turned off right away, and that they knew the plane, something was wrong, which deviated, of course. Then the transponder was turned off, but the agent never lost sight of it. The reason why is because the FAA and Air Traffic Control had tagged Flight 11's radar dot for easy visibility to the agents. In about 3 minutes later, Dan Bueno again contacts TRACON, which is Terminal Radar Approach Control Facilities, about getting in contact with Otis Air Force Base of the Air National Guard to intercept American 11.
Cape TRACON, came in at 41. Cape TRACON. Yeah, hi. Are you able to talk to Otis on this line? I'm not sure, but if you need to get in touch with him, I can. Right, I think they're on the 7 line. I have a situation with the American 11. What? I have a situation with American 11. You want to talk to Otis Tower? I want to talk to Otis Street. I need to scramble some fighters. All right, well, hold on a second. Let me get you the soup.
This is the first instance of September 11, 2001, where everyone outside of air traffic control in Fort Worth now is warned about a situation happening regarding an American Airlines plane and a hijacking. The first recording, the first instance involving the American military, even its Air National Guard. Now, Boston air traffic control bypassed the usual standard protocols and directly contacted the North American Aerospace Defense Command, which is NORAD, and the Northeast Air Defense Sector, which is NEADS, located in Rome, New York. NEADS, in return, called on 2 F-15 fighters at Otis, in which Dan Bueno tried to warn American Airlines to contact to try and intercept the plane, which is deviating off course and not responding. Officials at Otis spent a few minutes trying to get authorization for the fighters to take off. Atta now is descending into New York. And at 8:43, he turns east into New York. Dan Bueno again tries to contact Traycon. And then another recording is heard.
Command Center Ace, Tony. Hi, Tony. Command Center here. Boston Center here. Can I get New York Traycon? You bet. Nothing with the... yes, with American 11. Say it again? Oh, a reference to American 11. Have you had any contact with him yet? No. No contact. It is confirmed hijacked, though. Hey, Traycon. Hi, Boston Center. Good morning. American 11. 767 possible hijack. Okay, American 11, 75 and 76. Where's he landing? Right now, we don't have any idea, but he was to the northwest of Albany, and now he's down by Sparta, losing speed very rapidly. We believe he's a primary only, and we believe he's on the descent. That's why he's slowing down. I'm just trying to, and he's around the Sparta area now, you said? Yeah, he's around the Sparta area right now. Wow.
Okay. So it's a confirmed hijack. However, when that transmission was being made at 8:46 and 40 seconds, Atta intentionally crashes into the North Tower and hit it hit between floors 93 and 99 of the North Tower. The plane was holding 38,000 liters, which is 10,000 gallons of fuel. 10,000 gallons of fuel is 76,000 pounds. Right before that crash, Amy Sweeney, the flight attendant, is talking to Michael Woodward. Her last words were, "We are in rapid descent. We are all over the place. Oh my God, we are too low." Then the phone is silent. One of the first initial eyewitnesses to the crash is FDNY Lieutenant William Walsh, who appears in the Nordette documentary of 9/11. He's with Joseph Pfeiffer, fire chief. And I'll read you his quote. "We were under the impression he looked like he was going down, but we didn't hear any mechanical difficulty. We couldn't figure out why an American Airlines plane would be so low in downtown Manhattan. We sort of expected him to veer off and go into the Hudson, but he just rose a little bit, his altitude leveled off, and he was headed straight for the Trade Center. So just before he got to the Trade Center, it seemed as though he gained power. We were just watching the airplane on target for the World Trade Center. All of a sudden, boom, he disappears into the Trade Center." When the plane impacted between 93 and 94 floors of the North Tower, it destroyed any means of escape at the impact zone or above it, because all the stairwells and elevators from floor 92 to floor 99 were destroyed. They were impassable, trapping 1,344 people. All of them died. Everyone that was on the plane was dead immediately. When this happened, American Airlines Command Center at ATC is not aware of what happened. But they do get confirmation that two fighters have been scrambled to intercept American 11. But by this time, it's too late.
Scoggins, Damien. Hey, good morning, Sergeant Powell calling from Hutchers. Yes. Hey, I just wanted to make sure that your guys know that we're not going to control it. You guys are going to have them on the radio. We don't have them on the radio, but he's keying the mic on whatever frequency he has. We don't know if he's taking these switches. You know if you guys are going to scramble at all? Yeah, we scrambled at 4-6. Okay, and we're at Atlantic City or? No, Otis. They did scramble out of Otis? Yes. Okay. So they should be airborne any second now. Should be airborne any second. Did you get any height finding on him? No, we're looking right now for everything. We don't see a thing yet. Do you have the target itself? We have the approximate location where it was. We don't know a Mode 3 or anything. No, yeah, we didn't have Mode 3 either. I didn't know if you had a primary on him or not. No. We lost radar on him, but that was about 5 minutes ago. He was 8 miles east of JFK, so I assume he's probably about 20 miles southeast of JFK now, or south, almost due south. Oh, southeast? Yeah, he's probably almost south now. Oh, okay. All right, thank you. Okay.
A second call is made, this time to the Northeast American Defense Systems. NORAD calls Huntress regarding American 11, which is code for planes to be scrambled.
Heads up, New York Amos, Huntress ID. New York Amos, Huntress ID. New York. Yes, ma'am. Are you aware of the possible hijack of American 11? No, I'm not. To Boston Center, ma'am, we just got information. There's a real-world hijack, American 11. He was 40 miles north of JFK, headed towards JFK. We're trying to find out any information that we possibly can. Apparently, the pilot was having a rough time because there have been threats in the cockpit. He was started out of Boston for Los Angeles, now headed for JFK. We do have military systems that is after him to F-15. Wanted to give you a heads up to let you know American 11. Okay. And we're trying to locate any information as far as the location where he is currently.
Okay. Now, while this is happening, right, there's a call directly to NORAD, which is from Boston Center. I'm sorry, not to NORAD, to NEADS, the Northeast Air Defense Sector, which you just heard, Huntress, which is from NEADS. Okay. What led to that call was that after Dan Bueno contacted Joe Cooper of Boston Center then calls Huntress, which is basically a sector of operations control at NEADS, to scramble fighters to tail American 11.
Huntress Weapons, Sergeant Powell. Hi, Boston Center TMU. We have a problem here. We have a hijacked aircraft headed towards New York, and we need you guys we need someone to scramble some F-16s or something up there to help us out. Is this real world or exercise? No, this is not an exercise, not a test. Okay, hey, hold on one second, okay? Yeah.
So, at about 3 minutes later, Flight 11 crashes into the North Tower. Planes do get scrambled in New York, but they entered the airspace 6 minutes later. Far too late to do anything. Plus, they did not have authorization at this time for a shoot-down order. Reports now come to NEADS that American Airlines crashes into the North Tower.
Together. New York. Yes, ma'am. Did you just hear the information regarding the World Trade Center? No. Being hit by an aircraft? I'm sorry? Being hit by an aircraft. Are you kidding? It's on the world news. Ask them if they still have altitude. Do you still have altitude on that aircraft that you have for hijack? Like I said, I don't look at radar here. Yeah, you lost. You said you lost contact, though. Call this number again. Call this number right here. Tell her that.
So there you have it. American Airlines 11 crashes into the North Tower at 8:46 a.m. Good evening. Good evening, Mike. So let's address the fringe conspiracy theories first. One, there's no plane crash at the North Tower. Right? We can dismiss this as with the evidence that you just heard, and according to documentation from eyewitnesses, which I read, just one, regarding a plane hitting the North Tower. Wasn't CGI, wasn't computer-generated plane. It wasn't a drone outfitted to look like a plane. There's no evidence to suggest this either, unless you're willing to say that everybody from the FAA, American Airlines, were involved at some level in making a plane look like a drone look like a plane. And there's no documentary evidence for this. So why would you entertain this? And this is unreasonable. There were exercises, Chip Walker, actually. There was a number of them, including Amalgam Virgo 1, Amalgam Virgo 2, Vigilant Guardian, Global Guardian, and as well as a number of others. What this did was basically allow for planes from NORAD and NEADS to enter the airspace all around the United States, Canada, the Atlantic, even towards the West Coast. And these exercises are not hot gun planes. In other words, these planes weren't authorized to be loaded with weapons, mind you. So even if they were contacted, if we were to believe that they were exercises on purpose, they would still have to land at their Air Force bases, get authorization to get the weapons on the planes, and then get extra authorization from the military chain of command, which is the president and the Department of Defense, not the vice president. He's not part of the military chain of command. And then NORAD, that they had authorization from either one, with basically the president first, to be able to shoot down these planes. They got no such authorization until 10:32 a.m. Much too late. All the planes that crashed. Now, Jules Nordet and Pavel Havla, who's a Czech immigrant, they videotaped the crash. Now, everybody knows Nordet's video, but hardly anyone knows Pavel Halava. Now, I'll copy and paste this name and post it in the chat section so you could see it. So there isn't just one videotape. And I believe Havla's video is basically from Brooklyn Bridge or George Washington Bridge. One of them. And it shows like it's not a clear shot as Nordet's video. Oh, I'm sorry. There's another video. It's Wolfgang Stahel. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not video. It's pictures. He set up a webcam at an art exhibit in Brooklyn, and he was going to take images of Lower Manhattan every 4 seconds, and he captured images of Flight 11 crashing into the tower. It's not video, but it's pictures. CNN was the first news agency which broke into commercial at 8:49 and had the headline World Trade Center. They were the first agency to report. Now, I'm not going to talk about the World Trade Center and other what happened afterwards. I just wanted to concentrate on the American Airlines plane, the specifics regarding this plane, the passengers, the crew involved. A Dick Oliver audio video. What is that? By the way, Mike. That Fox News, I believe. Could be wrong. I haven't heard that name in years. So, hypothesis. Was this plane remotely guided to make sure that the plane actually impacted the North Tower? This is something I entertained, and I think it's a reasonable scenario. For example, let's hypothesize that Mohammed Atta or whoever's flying the plane, because we know there's hijackers, decided to get cold feet at the last second and veer off. That's very reasonable. In order to assure this doesn't happen, maybe Boeing uninterruptible pilot system overridden the manual override and veered the plane to make sure it directly hit the towers. Now, that's a conspiracy theory that I don't have evidence for, but because it's reasonable, these are reasonable speculations. Because it's reasonable, you don't dismiss them, but you don't use it as evidence. This is what I'm trying to do to help the 9/11 truth movement, who sometimes use speculation as a form of evidence. And then when you ask them for evidence, they get flustered and they give you a video to look at, whether it's Christopher Bolin or Rebecca Roth or Loose Change, the film, or a documentary that proposes hypothesis without evidence and use hypothesis and speculation as evidence, or even just promote fringe conspiracies based on nothing more than imagination as the lead evidence for their theory, which leads many people to become disillusioned with evidence, actual evidence, because they believe you got that evidence from an official source which supports the official narrative. Now, this is where the truth movement gets into a bit of a trouble because they'll accept any theory as long as it's against the official narrative. Now, what is the official narrative? To the 9/11 Truth Fringe Conspiracies group, not everybody is like this or believes in this, but to the fringe conspiracists in the 9/11 Truth Movement, the official narrative of 9/11 is this: 4 planes were hijacked by 19 Arab men who hate our freedoms and crashed into the World Trade Center, Pentagon, and Shanksville. That's it. And that Israel is somewhere involved, and the Arabs are patsies. That's the official narrative. Now, for anyone who's watching this and knows my channel well and looks at the information I provide, this is a microcosm of the official narrative because many of these people have never read the 9/11 Commission Report, which I have currently uploading on my WordPress, chapter by chapter, so you could read it. And you figure out what's missing and you figure out what's false and what's true, right? I'm not going to tell you. I'm just going to provide as much factual information to try and educate people on a matter that's sorely miseducated, misrepresented. I take great pride with that. And I'm not telling you what to believe. I don't want you to believe something. I want you to know something. That's important here. You're going to hear me say that a lot. And I say it anyway a lot. Because we can act on knowledge. We can't act on belief. At about 8:30 a.m., right before that plane crashes, FAA's command center in Herndon, Virginia, began its senior staff meeting that involved National Operations Manager Ben Slaney, who, by the way, is his first day on the job. He interrupts the meeting to report the hijacking of Flight 11. And at 8:46, when the plane crashes into the World Trade Center, the meeting is canceled. Now, here's a guy you have to consider a hero. His name is Gerald Arpey. When he learns that now Gerald Arpey is the American Airlines Executive Vice President for Operations. He learns from manager Joe Bertabley that Flight 11 has been hijacked and that they're in contact with a flight attendant. Arpey is told that there's a transmission that came in saying that we have some planes, plural, not plane. We have some planes, meaning that he's aware that other planes may be involved. They didn't get intercept jets in time. And when, I'm not going to get into this, but when 175 crashes into the South Tower at 9:03, 2 F-16s, which are practicing bombing runs over the Pine Barrens near Atlantic City, get to New York at 9:11 a.m. 8 minutes from Flight 175. That's interesting. I think it's 9:11 or 9:12. They get there less than 10 minutes later. But again, it's not like they can do anything because unless they crash into the planes, they don't have weapons on these planes. and they don't have authorization for the shoot down. Were any of the intercept jets out of Selfridge Air Force Base in Michigan? No. The only intercept jets that came from were from Atlantic City, New Jersey, which is a base that's on 24-hour alert status. And they were on a practice run of a bombing in Pine Barrens near Atlantic City. They were the first ones to get to New York. When Boston Flight Center contacted NORAD, Lieutenant Colonel Dwayne Deskins, who's the mission crew chief for the Vigilant Guardian exercise, later said that initially the flight controller she initially said that she and everybody else at Needs thought the call was part of Vigilant Guardian. As you could see that there was a mix-up. Like I played the audio for you, whether this was real world or exercise. The exercise is scheduled to include a simulated hijacking in which Major Kevin Naspaney, the Needs mission crew commander, helped to design it. And thinking, when the word got back to him, thinking about Flight 11, he says that the reported hijacking is not part of this exercise, and he says this out loud. Now, for those who want to hear like that audio, which is hours and hours, dozens of hours long, I implore you to go to the Vanity Fair article, the NORAD tapes. You can download the NORAD tapes, which I played some of it for you, from archive.org. That's where I would tell you to go download the audio from in MP3 file format. They give you a number of different formats to download. Naspaney says out loud, the hijacking is not supposed to be for another hour. But then he realizes that it's Flight 11. Now, this is important. The NORAD commander, Major General Larry Arnold, who is at Tyndall Air Force Base in Florida, said when he first hears of the hijacking, in the minutes after Needs is alerted to it by Boston Center, he says, quote, the first thing that went through my mind, is this part of the exercise or is this some kind of screw up, end quote. Major James Fox, the leader of the Needs weapons team, comments that I've never seen so much real world happen during an exercise. The article was written by Vanity Fair on August 1st, 2006. It's probably the best article I've read from Vanity Fair. They couldn't get in touch with Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Eberhardt. He didn't have a phone, couldn't get to a phone. He's in his car somewhere. There's a mix-up between FAA and NORAD and Needs. Not all the protocols were followed. FAA basically made some mistakes along the way. And they later testified under oath at the 9/11 Commission report. Number of FAA officials like Ben Sliney, Jane Garvey, and Monty Belger all testified. And I have this uploaded. I'm the only person in the world who has uploaded both the 9/11 Commission and Joint House in its full, with the full committee hearings, which is stunning to me because how can nobody upload this because it shows some inconsistencies and even some outright falsehoods promoted by, say, the CIA, for example. This is the reason why I get this concerned with the 9/11 Truth Movement, because they don't read or they don't listen that which contradicts their previously held beliefs, which are based on falsehoods and fantasy. And the reason why I'm doing these videos now with the planes is because I want to show factual evidence. And just because I believe the planes were hijacked, just because I believe that there were phone calls in these planes, just because I believe that there were hijackers in these planes, doesn't mean that I am promoting an official narrative of the FBI or the 9/11 Commission Report. I fill in the blanks and try to do the best I can regarding certain anomalies. Now, there's a lot of conspiracy with 9/11. And I think everybody in this room can agree with that. But the conspiracies involved with the geopolitics, the details, pre and post 9/11, are not given the attention they deserve because of the simple fact that they just can't believe the official narrative of planes being hijacked by hijackers. And this was a belief, a theory that began very early on, even in the weeks after 9/11, by a French author named Thierry Masson. And then later on, Alex Jones and Jim Fetzer. And that gave rise to numerous 9/11 documentaries, In Plain Sight, and then later Loose Change, which spread these fringe conspiracies, which are unreasonable, sometimes even irrational, which permeated the minds of, it's not hard to say, millions of people. And because that they cannot believe in the official narrative of planes being hijacked by hijackers, that means that any competing theory, no matter how irrational it is, it will always be given a place in the 9/11 Truth Movement. And at the same time, it's these beliefs that are being witnessed by the public, and the public is making a judgment. It's not making a judgment on debunkers. It's not making a judgment on skeptics. It's not even making a judgment on the State Department's official narrative. It's a judgment on the Truth Movement, because they allow these people to be given a place within their movement when they should have been never given any attention whatsoever and dismissed with evidence, which is what I'm trying to do now, but it's much too late. But I can at least try and maybe get one or two people who are used to be in that mindset to get them to think. I don't want you to just believe me. I want you to vet the information I'm providing. Another question is there precedent of simulation exercises like Vigilant Guardian? Do you know how common such exercises are? Well, that's a great question. By the way, Amalgam Virgo 1 was basically an exercise that took place just a couple of months earlier. The Global Guardian exercise was an annual training exercise sponsored by the United States Strategic Command in conjunction with Air Force Space Command and NORAD. And it's performed in conjunction with Vigilant Guardian. And it's an annual training exercise conducted by NORAD, in which a threat to North American airspace is simulated. And the simulated scenario is it varies every year. So in other words, in 2000, it simulated a different scenario than a hijacking. This year was a hijacking. In 2000 was something else. It could have been a repeat of the Cold War, Russian bombers entering American airspace or whatever. So, yeah, that's what some of these exercises were conducted weeks prior. Some of them were conducted months prior. Some of them were conducted annually. But there was a number of these exercises. Some of the exercises are still not public. They're classified. The timing is suspicious. I'm with you, Chip Walker. Now, look, that's a reasonable. See, I'm glad, Chip Walker. Thank you. That's a reasonable hypothesis, right? That's a reasonable conspiracy that the timing of these exercises is suspicious. Why? Because in order for the planes to successfully hit their targets, that means our air defense had to be distracted or non existent. Well, on September 11th, both. Okay? So that means there has to be foreknowledge of the event. Well, now you're hitting in my wheelhouse because my theory, and this is, I don't have evidence for this, but this is a reasonable hypothesis, and I'd like to hear your opinion. My hypothesis is this: the NSA had a listening device on Bin Laden. Well, they were listening to Bin Laden's satellite phone from 1992 to 1998. He got rid of it in 98. They were also listening to a phone in Sana'a, Yemen, which was an Al Qaeda communications hub. And they were listening to the phone calls every day from 1996 to 2001. Now, that's not speculation. That's fact. Let me ask you something. What do you think they were talking about on those calls? Were they talking about the Yankees? Were they talking about The View? No, they were talking about stuff that they're involved in, operations, talking with other people in certain countries, and involving certain operations. If that's the case, and the NSA heard this, that means that they probably shared that information with a very specific group of people, maybe in the CIA. And the CIA went to the Saudis and Israelis and told them to monitor people such as the 9/11 operators. Is that so hard to believe? And if that's the case, then that means they wanted the attacks to happen and involved the highest levels of Air Force. In other words, the planes were conducting exercises on that day. Is that hard to believe? Well, according to former senior executive Thomas Drake, he says that the NSA had so much metadata on the hijackers that they alone could have stopped 9/11 altogether if that information was shared with the FBI or State Department. And he testified in a closed-door meeting with the federal government, the Senate, a committee hearing, not the 9/11 Commission. And Mike, that would be absolutely a good point. Having the eastern seaboard, New York City, unprotected after an entire summer of hijack warnings and the August 6th PDB is beyond suspicious. Yeah, that's a great point. All throughout the summer months of 2001, we not only had domestic intelligence warning about bin Laden attacking the United States involving planes, we also had foreign intelligence from Russia, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Germany, Spain, Canada, Iran, all giving vague intelligence reports that bin Laden was preparing something big inside the United States. That would involve thousands of people involved with intelligence. Okay, we're having a number of different agencies, domestic and foreign. Now, the real conspiracy is this: it's not no planes, no hijackers. Here's the real conspiracy: everybody and their mother in the intelligence agency, in the intelligence world, knew that an attack was coming. Did they have stricter security measures at airports? No. Did they have stricter security measures regarding immigration and naturalization? No. Right there tells you that either they knew something was coming and they wanted it to come, or We are a country led by a sheer amount of malfeasance and ignorance. Either one could be plausible. Maybe it's a mixture of both. That's very well realistic. But at some level, these attacks could have been stopped, and they weren't. The only thing that's missing is direct evidence of foreknowledge, whether it's the CIA, the NSA, the Israeli Mossad, the Saudi General Intelligence Directorate, or an agency unknown to us that's involved. But I don't want to delve into, you know, so much there. Now, as for phone calls made on Flight 11, there were 3 phone calls made from Flight 11. Betty Young and Amy Sweeney. These calls were made on airphones. And they were made to regarding Amy Sweeney. I'm sorry, regarding the airphone, they're made to contact ground at high levels. Cell phone calls can, but it's not a stronger signal than that of an airphone. And I'm sorry, I have to. She used an all right, Amy Sweeney. I wanted to make sure that Amy Sweeney used an airphone, and yes, she did. She called her husband. I mean, she called Michael Sweeney, her husband, on a cell phone before the plane had taken off. And this is a very sad phone call because, according to the FBI contents, which they got all the phone calls, the transcripts themselves. Amy Sweeney basically said she was feeling depressed about missing out on a chance to see their 5-year-old daughter, Anna, who went off to school in kindergarten, in which her husband tells her that she'd have plenty of days to see the kids in school. She made that call at 7:15 a.m., which is pretty harrowing when you think about it. So, at the same time, she used the airphone, and that call, I think, lasted 5-6 minutes. And like I said before, I'll read the whole transcript to you. At seconds before impact, this is 8:46 too. She says to her husband, "I see water. I see buildings. I see buildings. We're flying low. We're flying very, very low. Oh my God, we're flying too low. Oh my God, and that was it. That's all you heard." I'm going to give you in the chat room the link to see the FBI interviews regarding employees at American Airlines and United and the victims' families thereof, of those who died on American Airlines 11 and other planes. But I just want to keep it to American 11. So that's all the calls for 11. The technical details I talked about And also for eyewitness reports, that would be on the link I gave you, which you could read for yourself in the chat room. And I think I could end it here unless anybody else has another question, which I will always entertain and try to answer to the best of my ability. I think the next live discussion I'll do is maybe this weekend, where I'll do United Airlines Flight 175. I want to do all 4 planes and try to help educate those who who fell victim to fringe conspiracies regarding no planes or no hijackers. Yes, there were planes, and yes, there were hijackers, but the real conspiracy involves the intelligence agencies and affiliates pre 9/11 that have assisted and maybe even foreknowledge. And if we can show that, we could probably show complicity later. But we don't have that type of information yet. And so I'll call it a night and end the stream. And listen, thank you very much for coming. And I'll probably do a live stream this weekend regarding United Airlines Flight 175. Good night, everybody. Thank you very much.